All right, in this example, we're given the graph of a function, and now we want to find the formula for the function. All right, so I'm looking at this. I'm seeing, first of all, that I'm starting at the peak and ending at the peak. So you can see one period of this function. Here, I'll highlight it in red. One period of this function goes, or one cycle, I could say, but one cycle goes from 0 to 20. So my period is 20, right? So there's one period of the function, right? You can see that the midline, it's going from -1 to 1. So the midline is y equals 0, okay? The amplitude is just the x-axis, right? So it's uh, sorry, midline is y equals 0. Amplitude is equal to 1. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second. And the period now is what really changed from the basic cosine function. The period is equal to 20 now. Okay, so that's the major change. Because you can see it's a cosine function, right? It starts high and ends up at the high point, so it looks like a cosine function. So I want a formula that's in the form of y equals cosine of bt, right? So that b value is what's going to change the period. Okay. Now you could remember the formula we had before, which is the period is equal to 2 pi over b, and just set that equal to 20, right? And solve for what b is. Now, if you ever forget that, though, sometimes I forget things. I don't know about you. Sometimes I'm much better. My brain works better. Is it better at reasoning than it is at memory? So sometimes if I forget, okay, or if I'm not quite sure if I'm remembering that formula correctly, then sometimes I just think about. I have a function that varies from 0 to 20. Completes one cycle. From 0 to 20, and I start at 1 and I end up back at 1. Okay, but now what does bt have to be, right? I want now normally cosine cycles between 0 and 2 pi, right? So one cycle, so bt has to go from 0 to 2 pi when t goes from 0 to 20. So really all I'm going to do is just say, well, okay, 0, that doesn't matter what b is. This is really what's going to determine, these quantities right here are really what's going to determine what my b value is, right? So I know that bt, so b times t, which is 20, has to be equal to 2 pi, okay? And then I just use algebra and solve for what b is, right? So I'm just going to divide both sides by 20, and so I get pi over 10. Okay, now I could have gotten the same thing just by if I had remembered this formula, right? But I want to emphasize that that's the beauty of math. Sometimes you forget things, but you can always reason it out, all right? There's always good reasons for things. Now, sometimes you do have to memorize things, but just because reasoning it out isn't that simple. But anyway, either way, I get a formula for this function, cosine of pi over 10t. You want to put parentheses around it so that it's clear that it's the cosine of all of that thing in parentheses, pi over 10 times t. All right, so here's another little gray box that you might want to remember. So if you have a function, now we've kind of added a bunch of things together, right? We know how to we already know from 9.4 how to stretch and compress things vertically with a and k, and the k is a translation vertically. And now we're adding in this concept that we just learned, which was how to change, to horizontally stretch and compress the function with the b value. Okay, so this is kind of a summary of everything that we've kind of putting everything together from 9.4 and 9.5. But we're not done yet. We're going to add to this yet still more. So I actually included a summary at the very end of this lecture that summarizes everything from 9.4 and 9.5. So stay tuned for that. I'll meet you in the next video.